When there is no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In this video we're going to be looking at Dawn of the Dead from 2004. This film is a modern reimagining of George A. Romero's 1978 classic of the same name. This modern version is directed by Zack Snyder in his feature film debut. Something that made this film so unique when it came out is how the zombies move. Gone were the days of the lumbering, slow corpses. Now we're dealing with zombies that can move incredibly fast, completely changing the dynamic. The director Zack Snyder would later become known for his heavily stylized films such as 300, Watchmen, and Man of Steel, but it all started with Dawn of the Dead. Not to mention this film was written by James Gunn, who would later go on to direct major hits like Guardians of the Galaxy. This movie had a lot of talent in front of the camera and behind the camera, and it really shows. This movie terrified me as a kid, but eventually became my favorite zombie movie. Without further ado, let's get into Dawn of the Dead, and along the way, try to answer some questions about how this mysterious zombie outbreak started.
Well, I like Gary.
Dr. Dantor, I'm kind of in a bit of a...
We'll be teeing off at 7:30.
The movie begins with us being introduced to the main character, Anna. She's a nurse that works in a hospital. She's bringing some files to a doctor when he asks, why would they order a head x-ray for someone who was bitten on the hand? Anna doesn't have a clue why, but I think we can wager a guess. This could possibly be one of the first victims of this virus, or whatever it is. Anna was done work an hour ago but is just now getting to leave. Somebody is being brought in the hospital and it looks like they've been bitten. When she goes outside, we get a bit of a fake jump scare when it looks like one of the ambulance drivers is dead, but he's just laying down in the back. When she walks by, they both jump up though to the radio and say, oh, it's starting early tonight.
Let's go, it's starting early.
Between the two bite victims in the hospital and them saying it's starting early, it sounds like this virus has already started to affect the city. When Anna gets in her car to go home, she's switching to the radio stations, and for 1 second we hear this.
Confirmed it is not an isolated...
Another hint that something might be going on. When she arrives home at her house, she talks to a young girl for a few minutes who lives in the neighborhood and then goes inside. She lays down with her husband and they go to sleep for the night. Before they go to bed, the TV says special news bulletin, no doubt something about the outbreak. The next morning, the young girl who was roller skating in the street named Vivian is inside their house. She opens the door to their bedroom and her face is covered in blood. Anna's husband tries to rush over to help her to see what's wrong, but we already know. Vivian bites his neck and he starts to bleed out. Anna's smart enough to shut the door and locks the little girl outside. Anna tries to help her husband the best she can, but it doesn't take long for him to bleed out. Then stand back up. Anna's husband changed into a zombie extremely fast and is immediately aggressive and starts trying to kill her. She has to lock herself in the bathroom to survive. He starts trying to beat the door down and she has no choice but to jump out the window and then run out to her car. As soon as she gets outside, the entire neighborhood is in chaos. Cars driving around, her neighbor pulls a gun on her and then gets hit by a car. Her husband comes back out the front door and tries to attack her, but she jumps in the car and drives away. While chasing the car, he sees someone else outside and just gives up on chasing Anna and kills them instead. Some of these wide shots of the city and the neighborhood are really cool because just before the outbreak happened, we got to see how nice and calm it looked. Now we get to see the same landscape in complete chaos. Anna gets in her car and starts driving on the highway, but eventually the road is blocked by cars and she has no choice but to stop. She sees some people getting eaten alive in the back of a bus when someone tries to open her door. This guy's not infected, but he's trying to steal her car. In a panic, Anna floors the gas, drives off the side of the road, and slams into a tree, knocking herself unconscious. This is when we get the opening titles of the movie, which are really cool. When the title sequence begins, we see there's somebody answering questions on a podium. The person asking him questions first asks, "Is this a virus?" And the guy says, "We don't know." Someone else from the crowd asks him, "How does it spread? And is it airborne?" He says, "It's a possibility, but again, they don't know." They want to know if it's a health hazard or a military concern, and the man says both. Finally, somebody wants to know, are these things alive or dead? He says, they don't know.
There's a man going around taking names.
After the man's done speaking, we're greeted by a montage of different shots of zombies, cities falling into chaos, news broadcasts, and more. This footage also plays alongside the song "The Man Comes Around" by Johnny Cash, which is a very interesting song choice. I say that because this movie constantly teeters between the idea of this being a virus or possibly a biblical judgment. I'll talk more about that later. After the montage and Johnny Cash song are completed, Anna wakes up in her car with a shotgun pointed at her. The one pointing the shotgun at her is Sergeant Kenneth Hall. He asks her to say something, and she does. He wanted her to talk so he could know if she was infected or not. He helps her out of the car and the two start moving together. Not too long after, they run into 3 more survivors: Andre, his wife Luda, and Michael. Kenneth wants to make it to Fort Pastor because that's where his brother is, but the other survivors tell him, "You don't want to go that way." Kenneth keeps walking anyway, and Michael reiterates, "Sir, you do not want to go that way."
How do you know?
We just tried. Come on.
Apparently that way, the road is absolutely crawling with them, and they just tried to go that way, when there was 8 of them. Michael says their new plan is they're going to go to the mall, so Kenneth and Anna follow them. They make their way over to the mall and try to break in with a crowbar, but before they can get in the door, zombies start arriving. Like I said before, gone are the slow zombies. These ones sprint at full speed. Terrifying. Kenneth has to shoot the lock off the door and they barely make it inside. We also get to see that these zombies don't go down from body shots. Headshots only. They make their way inside and the mall seems to be empty. Since the apocalypse happened overnight, I guess the mall never opened in the morning, so there wasn't any people inside when everything happened. There is a few straggler zombies in the mall that they have to kill, possibly employees or people that were in the store early or overnight. They also go around to all the entrances and make sure the doors are closed and locked. Michael's fighting off a zombie in the sporting goods store, and while the rest are waiting at the entrance, a zombie wearing a security uniform pops out and tries to attack them. Kenneth tackles the zombie into the fountain, cutting his arm, and Anna picks up the shotgun and shoots it. Not killing it, but turning it into what we'll later know as a twitcher. It looks like nobody got hurt in this scuffle, but in actuality, Luda was bitten by the zombie on her arm and keeps it a secret. We can see as they meet back up and they're running toward the elevator, Luda pulling down the sleeve of her shirt to hide the bite. A nice little detail that when you rewatch this movie you notice. They don't know how many more zombies are in the mall, so they decide to take the elevator to try to go up to the other levels. But they're greeted by 3 security guards holding them at gunpoint. Before any of the survivors can speak, the head security guard CJ says, "Find someplace else." Michael tries to tell the security guards there is nowhere else, but he doesn't care and tells them that's not their problem. CJ even points the gun at Kenneth, and one of the other security guards says, "CJ, he's a cop." But CJ doesn't care at all. He simply says, "So what?" Kinda stupid, but also kinda smart on CJ's part, because he realizes the whole world has collapsed, and being a cop means absolutely nothing anymore. Anna manages to calm down the situation, and CJ agrees to let them stay for a little bit, if they give over all their weapons. At first they protest, but eventually they have no choice, so they give their weapons up. So after giving up their weapons, they're allowed inside the top level of the mall. In there, they have a bunch of TV screens set up and they're watching them, the news playing on all of them. This shows that the entire world hasn't fallen yet. There's still some places recording news and broadcasting it, and presumably there's still people out there to watch it. This news broadcaster says to the sheriff, "So I've heard you've had a hard time killing these things." And the sheriff says, "Shoot them in the head. If you shoot them in the head, they seem to go down permanently. Then, burn the bodies." If you didn't know, this sheriff is actually Tom Savini, one of the most legendary makeup special effects artists ever, and he worked on the original Dawn of the Dead. There's another cameo in here from the original film that I'll point out when it comes up. The sheriff then points at a body on the ground and tells the men to shoot it because she's a twitcher, and we see the body twitching around, which is what this one was downstairs earlier. Luda asks if she can use the restroom, and in the restroom we see Andre taking a look at her arm, and she has a scratch. I'm sure she's going to be perfectly fine and this won't be a problem later. Anna has to go get some bandages, and starts crying when she's in the room alone. No doubt because she's lost her husband and probably everyone she's ever loved. Kenneth sees a military guy on TV telling them to make it to Fort Pastor if they can. He's sure that his brother is there waiting for him. We can tell Kenneth was in the Marines by his tattoo, and it's possible that his brother may be in the army or something, which is why he's so sure that his brother will be at Fort Pastor. CJ is pretty annoyed by the survivors, but Michael has some ideas. He suggests they lock down the mall, because sooner or later those things are going to get in. And they should put a sign up on the roof asking for help, because there's still planes flying overhead, and they might see it. CJ's trying to act cool and tough, but you can see in his eyes that he never even thought of that. CJ suggests they get some paint from the hardware store to paint a sign on the roof, and they can use some office doors to board up any weak spots.
Woman over there, look! She's a twitcher!
Twitcher.
The survivors and the security guards then go downstairs to clear out the remaining zombies from the mall and board up the doors. As they're standing on the roof painting the SOS sign and throwing some of the dead bodies off, they realize that all of the zombies are coming toward the mall. Anna asks, why are they coming here? And Kenneth says, I don't know. Maybe memory? Instinct? Or maybe they're coming for us. Just then they hear some gunshots and realize that across the road there's another person alive on the roof. It's Andy, and he owns his own gun store, so he's pretty strapped up over there. Andre jokes that although he's only across the road, he might as well be on the moon. And he's not wrong, because there's no way for him to get to them or them to get to him. It's just impossible. There's too many zombies. I have to say a gun store is a pretty good place to get stranded in a zombie apocalypse though. Too bad there wasn't a gun store in the mall, then they'd really be cooking with grease. While looking back and forth at each other, Andy spots a helicopter. It flies right over the mall and they start waving their arms thinking, oh, surely they're saved now. But it just flies away. Some of the survivors think, well, there's no point in even settling in here because that helicopter's going to come back to save them. But some of the other more intelligent survivors realize that's not something you should count on. During the night, the security guards lock the survivors up in one of the stores so they can't leave or roam around the mall. Michael's laughing and saying, those idiots are going to get us killed. Michael knows they have to do something, but Andre doesn't want to do anything to put his pregnant wife in jeopardy. Kenneth doesn't care what either of them do because he's still under the impression that he's going to Fort Pastor to be with his brother. After Michael says the helicopter might not come back, Andre gets angry, and he also starts to question who Michael is, and why are they listening to him? What are you, some kind of special forces guy or something? That's what Michael admits. He sold TVs at Best Buy. This kind of reminds me of Saving Private Ryan, when they're all taking bets on what Captain Miller's job was before he went into the army. They all assume it was something really cool and badass, but eventually he admits that he was a school teacher. Sometimes it's those unlikely people that end up rising up to be heroes. CJ is upstairs watching TV again. There's someone on the TV explaining more about the zombies. He says they seem to have a need to feed on warm flesh. They don't have much of any reasoning skills, but they do have some brain activity. At the bottom of the screen, it says special report. The Secretary of Defense has firmly denied that any part of the current situation is due to any chemical or biological attack. It continues and says, due to the number of both friendly and unfriendly countries involved in the outbreak, we have no reason to suspect any terrorist involvement. So that's also a confirmation that this is happening across the entire world, not just the United States. They also still have the weather on the side, which I'm not really sure how important the weather is at a time like this, but good to know. They don't exactly know how it spreads, but he says that everyone they kill ends up getting back up. Another anchor comes up and says that he's just been informed they're going off the air and switching over to the emergency broadcast system. That most likely means that wherever this TV station is located, it's no longer safe to even be there. Now is one of my favorite scenes of the movie, and it's a very simple scene of CJ just sitting and watching TV. This is also the other cameo from the original Dawn of the Dead. This is Ken Foree, one of the main characters from the original movie. In this scene, CJ is sitting on the couch watching TV, but rather than it being a news broadcast, this is some kind of preacher or religious channel. He says this, "Hell is overflowing, and Satan is sending his dead to us. Why? Because you have sex out of wedlock. You kill unborn children. You have man-on-man relations, same-sex marriage. How do you think your God will judge you? Well, friends, now we know. When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth." There's just something I love about this scene. CJ looking like he's so entranced by the man talking. Like, this could be an answer to what's going on. And again, like I said before, just like the Johnny Cash song, there's little things throughout this movie that point to this possibly being a biblical judgment, not just some simple virus. Never once does the movie give you a clear answer of where this came from or how it started, so it's up to you to decide what you believe. I also like that at one point CJ almost looks like he's afraid, like he just had the chills run up his spine from listening to what this guy is saying. And then right after that amazing scene ends of the guy talking, it cuts to these perfect shots of the mall with this awesome music in the background and the lights being shut off. The next morning, one of the security guards is startled when the power comes on, but then the others remind him that it's just the timers in the mall. In one of the bathrooms, Kenneth and Andre are having a bird bath and trying to clean themselves up. This is a great scene between the two. Kenneth learns that Andre is more than just a criminal. He just wants to make a good life for his son. That's it. And that Kenneth can respect. All the survivors and security guards rush up to the roof because there's a truck driving around outside the mall shooting guns. It's a group of survivors and they need help to get inside. CJ doesn't want to let any of the new survivors in the mall, and he's getting increasingly aggressive, which leaves the survivors no choice but to disarm him and throw him and the other security guard that are too rough in the jail cell. The one other security guard that actually helped them is allowed to stay free. They end up backing the truck up to the side of the mall and then lowering down one of the ladders from the roof so they can climb up that way. When the truck arrives, that introduces 8 new people into the mall, and 2 of them have been infected. I mean, this chick already looks like a boomer from Left 4 Dead. You're telling me you're trying to survive a zombie apocalypse and that rolls in the front door and you're just gonna let her stay? Like, come on. Norma is the older woman who owns the truck, and she was the one who actually went and picked up all the survivors from a church in town that got overrun. It was supposed to be a safe area, but then she got a call from there saying there was a bunch of people held up in the chapel and she had to save them. Kenneth asks about Fort Pastor because that's where his brother is, but one of the survivors informs him there's no one alive there. Well, nobody fully alive anyway. Kenneth is getting angry and wants to know, is anyone there still alive or not? And Steve can't help but be sarcastic and say, yeah, well, everyone's dead in the sense that they fell down and then got back up and started eating each other. Kenneth really wants to leave to go find his brother, but Michael convinces him to stay because there's people here that could use his help. Kenneth goes up on the roof to think about whether or not he's going to leave or not, and that's when he starts communicating back and forth with Andy, who kind of becomes his friend and reason to stay at the mall. The nurse Anna is currently looking after the 2 infected people. The larger woman has a huge bite mark on her arm, and she looks really bad. The other guy just has a small wound on his hand, but he's also starting to look sick. When Anna is checking them out, the woman dies. And right after dying, that's when she comes back as a zombie. So in order for someone to be turned into a zombie, you have to die. You must first be infected by the virus or disease or whatever it is. Then you have to die in order to be fully turned. Kind of like some vampires. That kind of explains why some people turn faster than others, because if you have a really bad wound that kills you right away, like Anna's husband, then you will pretty much turn instantly. But for these 2 people, their bites weren't fatal, so they lived for quite a while after being wounded. Before, this large woman couldn't even walk, but after being fully turned, she could get up and sprint toward Anna at almost full speed, showing that once they're fully infected, they almost have hysterical strength, able to do things they shouldn't normally be able to do. After this incident is how Anna realizes that the people have to die in order to come back as a zombie. She informs them that one of the other survivors was bit, and eventually he will turn. They have a discussion about it, and Michael decides they should kill him right now to avoid any unnecessary consequences.
You're infected. You're gonna become one of them.
They inform the man that he is indeed infected and will eventually turn, and he needs to be killed. They let him live as long as he can, and then they watch him as he dies and kill him as soon as he comes back to life. We can see it doesn't take too long for the man to start to look extremely sick, possibly only a few hours. That means even if you don't die from a large wound like Anna's boyfriend, this virus or whatever it is will eventually kill you either way. After the infected survivor is killed, we see that Luda is still fine after being scratched or bitten. It looks like a scratch to me. So maybe if a wound is more superficial like hers, then the infection goes much slower. Now this next scene after the infected man is killed is another one of my favorites. It's when they play the Richard Cheese version of Down with the Sickness to a montage of them having a bunch of fun around the mall.
Get up, come on, get down with the sickness, you mother.
CJ and the security guards are playing poker with cigarettes. Ken is playing chess with Andy across the street. This girl is spray painting the stairway. And Steve is filming a interesting home movie. They also play this funny game where they write names on the whiteboard and then you have to kill the zombie that looks like the name. And we see the first guy go down and he looks exactly like Jay Leno, and then it cuts back to the sign and it says Jay Leno. So basically they just pass their time by killing celebrity lookalikes from the rooftop of the mall.
Man, he's good.
Anna is a bit disturbed that they're able to easily play a game where they're shooting people in the head and have absolutely no qualms about it. That's when Steve pipes up and says, "Oh, don't worry, honey, if I ever turn into one of those things, you can shoot me in the head." And she says, "Oh, don't worry, I will." We also see that outside the mall, the crowd of zombies that's gathered is getting massive. This would make leaving the mall nearly impossible. Andre hasn't been seen much as he's just been looking after Luda, but he comes out into the rest of the mall to try to get some food. Anna offers to come take a look at Luda to see how she's doing since she's a nurse, but Andre declines. This is a good indicator that he knows something is off with Luda and that she's possibly infected. That night they're all sitting down for dinner talking about their previous jobs, and Michael's listing off what he used to do. Drive a snowplow, repair fax machines, and we know that he works at Best Buy. Anna asks him what his worst job was, and he says, "I know which job I was worst at. Being a husband." There's a bit of chit chat back and forth, then Anna asks him what job was he best at, and he says, "Being a dad." And when he says it, his lip quivers just a little bit to show that he's holding back crying. Since he's talking about being a dad, but we obviously see no kid with him, that most likely means that his kid died. In the middle of their dinner, the power to the mall goes out, and Luda goes into labor. Before, Luda looked fine, but now she's starting to look much more sick. Andre clearly knows that she's infected because he's tied her down to the bed in a way that she can't escape. I can only imagine if that's what she looks like, the baby is not going to look too good. Michael wants to know if the mall has generators, and CJ shows him where they are. The security guards don't want to go into the parking structure, but Michael gives them no choice. He says, "You either come out and help me or you go back in the holding cell." So they decide to help him, but CJ says he's not going out there without a gun. However, Michael's not that stupid and gives him an axe instead. Right before they go out, Kenneth arrives too because he's going to help.
You coming with us? Nah, you coming with me.
They slowly make their way through the parking garage, seeing blood smeared on the walls. Not a good sign. CJ leads them toward the generators and they're jump scared by a dog. No idea how this dog was just surviving in the parking structure, but now he's with the group. They assume that since the dog is down there, that there must be no zombies down there or else they would have eaten the dog. But that's when a zombie comes crawling across the roof, missing its legs, and jumps onto one of the security guards, biting his neck. A moment later, an entire horde comes running inside, so the sound must have alerted the other zombies. They run to the generators as fast as they can, and the area is fenced in, so they're kinda safe for now, but they have to keep shooting the zombies off the fence. They're running low on ammo, so Michael grabs one of the gas pump nozzles and sprays gasoline all over the zombies, then has CJ light it on fire. When CJ actually helps him survive this encounter, that's kind of the beginning of his redemption. When they finally go back inside the mall, it's still dark, so I guess they didn't go far enough to reach the generators, or they couldn't turn them on. Luda, while giving birth, finally dies. And then of course, shortly after, comes back to life. And while being a zombie, she gives birth to her child. Andre successfully delivers the baby. Norma comes to bring him some supplies. And when she does, she's shocked by what she sees. She walks inside and is greeted by the sight of Luda being fully turned. This obviously startles Norma and she pulls out her gun and points it at Luda. But that's when Andre says, "You want to kill Luda? You want to kill my family?" Yeah, this clearly shows us that he's completely lost his mind, which, fair enough. Seeing your wife die in front of you and then your baby get turned into a zombie would probably be pretty traumatic. Norma, just trying to do the right thing, raises the gun and shoots Luda in the head. But as soon as she does that, Andre pulls out his gun and begins shooting Norma, and they have an exchange of bullets back and forth, leading to both of them dying. Of course, all the other survivors hear these gunshots going off in the middle of the night, so they all come running to the toy store where Luda and Andre were staying, and they walk inside to find a murder scene. Norma on the ground, gunned down, Luda dead in the bed, and Andre dead lying on the bed as well, holding a baby. Anna walks up and moves the blanket off the baby, and we see that it's an infected baby. The baby was obviously infected and must have died at some point during childbirth and was then brought back as a zombie. They have no choice but to kill the baby, and you could say this kind of sours the mall for everybody. Something else in this movie that points to the whole biblical angle is the name of the mall itself, the Crossroads Mall. In the Bible, crossroads are often linked to facing hard decisions and judgment. They bring the bodies out and cover them up, and Terry says that somebody should say something. There's an organ player there who worked in the church, and they ask him if he could say something, but he says it was just a job, and he doesn't believe in God. He doesn't see how anybody could. The ball gets kicked around the room a few times until Kenneth finally steps up and says, "There's nothing to say." He's been to a lot of funerals and folded a lot of flags and told people how sorry he was. But in reality, he was thinking in the back of his head, better them than me. But not anymore. Because now he's realized some things are worse than death, like sitting in this mall waiting to die. Again, the acting in this movie is so good. The way Kenneth's eyes are almost welling up with tears while he's saying this, amazing.
That there's some things worse than death, and one of them is sitting here waiting to die.
Anna's finally the one to break the silence and steps up and says, "I don't want to die here." Michael says that he's seen some shuttles in the parking area that they could use. Steve is being sarcastic and jokingly says, "Oh yeah, and then we can go swing by the marina and hop on my boat for a little pleasure cruise." He thinks he's joking, but all the rest of the survivors actually think that's a pretty good idea. Anna says that there's some islands out on those lakes with not a lot of people on them, and that could be a safe place for them to stay. Michael looks around the room and asks them if they all agree, if this is a good idea. And they do. Kenneth says the only thing is they need to go pick up Andy because he's part of the group. That's when CJ finally steps up and speaks. He says, "Excuse me, not to crap on anyone's riff here, but let me see if I grasp this concept, okay? You're suggesting that we take some parking shuttles and reinforce them with some aluminum siding and then just head on over to the gun store where we watch our good friend Andy play some cowboy movie jump on the covered wagon bullshit? Then we're going to drive across the ruined city through a welcome committee of a few 100,000 dead cannibals all so we can sail off into the sunset on this asshole's boat?" And that's when all the other survivors agree. Yeah, pretty much.
I'm in.
Like they said, it's risky, but it's better than just waiting around here to die. We then get a montage of them upgrading the parking shuttles to make them zombie-proof, taking all the seats out of the inside, putting barbed wire on, aluminum siding, a snowplow on the front of them, everything they can to protect themselves. We see CJ sizing up a giant propane gas tank for something. My bad, that's not even barbed wire, it's razor wire. Why would a mall need razor wire? By the time they're done, the buses look pretty good. They're almost completely covered, you can't get on the roof, and they have all kinds of defenses inside. Not only do they need to go over to Andy's to rescue Andy, but they're running very low on ammo. Before they go, we see them counting up rounds, and he says they only have 12 shotgun shells left, 26 9mm, and 16 .357 Magnums. Not very many. The next day, we see Kenneth up on the roof holding a sign that says 5 more days, and he's showing it to Andy. So they're probably planning on leaving the mall in 5 days. The only problem is, he looks like he's starving to death and he might not make it much longer. He holds up his sign and it just says, "Hungry." Kenneth knows they're gonna need to try to get Andy some food. Back inside, Michael's showing off one of his inventions. He's made holes in the side of the bus just big enough that you can stick a chainsaw through to cut the zombies' legs off or cut them in half, I guess. Anna and Michael are starting to have a little bit of a relationship. Anna informs them that Kenneth wants to have a meeting up on the roof, so they all go up there. They're worried that if they don't get Andy food, when they go to pick him up, he'll be too weak to do anything, which means he won't be any help. At first, they can't think of any way to get food over to Andy, and that's when somebody sees the dog and has an idea. They'll try to send the dog over with food. Since the dog lasted in the parking garage with the zombies, maybe they won't attack it. Not to mention, Andy's also got a crap ton of ammo and he's one hell of a shot, so if they're gonna make it down to the marina, they're probably gonna need him. The dog has like a kind of service backpack on it where you can put food into, so they load the dog up with food and lower it off the side of the building and allow it to run over to Andy. He's on the other roof blowing a dog whistle so the dog knows where to go. The dog seems to make it all the way across the road and over to Andy's just fine, and it even jumps in the little door right in front of Andy's place. But then, the zombies start reaching in trying to grab the dog. Andy does manage to get the food, but he says that in the scuffle, he was bitten. He seems totally calm when he says this, because he has no idea bites are how people are infected. So the rest of the group is looking at each other with extremely worried and sad faces, while Andy seems very happy for finally getting food. Now they pretty much have no reason to go over to Andy's, because at this point, Andy's pretty much dead, so it looks like they're going to be leaving without him. That is until the girl that was looking after the dog freaks out that the dog is gone, jumps in the truck and tries to drive across the road to save the dog. Somehow she actually does successfully make it all the way over to Andy's store, jump out and get inside the store without being killed or bitten. But then once she's inside, Andy's already been infected and died. He starts trying to kill her and she has no choice but to lock herself in a closet. All the survivors back at the mall can hear her in the closet with Andy banging on the door trying to kill her. Now they had no reason to go to that building since Andy's dead, but now the girl just went over there, they have to go to try and save her. They figure out the best way to do this is probably going to be to go under the mall, through the sewer, and then pop up through the manhole right in front of Andy's building and they can quickly run over and get inside. They all group up to go through the sewer and Steve stays behind to watch the door. They go through the sewer and come up on the road right in front of Andy's. They go very quietly and at first are not alerting any infected, which is good. But then when one of the survivors pulls the manhole cover back on, it makes a loud noise alerting all the zombies. The four of them make it inside Andy's store safely and they find Andy beating on the door. Kenneth steps forward, apologizes, and then puts his friend out of his misery. They find the girl and the dog Chips still alive, surprisingly. Now that they're in the ammo store, they stock up on as much ammo as they can and then head back out onto the road. While getting back into the manhole, one of the survivors trips and falls down the entire sewer, hitting the bottom and probably breaking his leg, both of his legs, or an ankle. CJ grabs him and tries to drag him down the tunnel, giving him 2 guns to cover them, but it's just not enough. They get overtaken and CJ has no choice but to leave the man there. Well, he doesn't actually leave him because the man is screaming, shoot me, and CJ obliges. Of course, no surprise, they get back to the door, and Steve had one job, to watch the door and wait for them. And what did he do? He left. So now they're banging on the door with nowhere to go and a massive horde of zombies stacking up behind them. Thank God Anna came back to save them, or they'd be dead for sure. Now they run through the mall with the entire horde of zombies hot on their trail. No more staying in the mall now. They come up the escalator to the rest of the survivors just standing there wondering what's going on, and they tell them all to go, hurry, and they all have to run to the shuttles as fast as they can. They make it to the elevator just in time, and as the door closes, the elevator music starts to play.
I like this song.
They all rush to the shuttles and make it inside safely. Michael clears a way by using the one with the plow to blast through the garage door. They try to make it through the parking lot, but there's literally thousands of zombies, a sea of them, and the vehicles just can't move. That's when Anna says, CJ, now, go, and he pulls out a ladder and goes up onto the roof. They're doing their best to shoot the zombies through the side of the bus, but they're starting to rock the bus back and forth, like they're trying to flip it over. Kenneth says they're trying to turn us over, hit him with the saw. That's when Steve grabs the chainsaw and uses those slits that Michael put in the side of the bus. We see CJ go up onto the roof with a propane tank and he throws it into the crowd of zombies, then shoots it, causing it to explode and knock over many of the zombies. I'm no explosives expert, but I'm pretty sure that a propane tank would not create an explosion that big, but who cares. All the zombies get knocked over, which allows them to drive away. They start speeding through the city as fast as they can, trying to make it to the marina, using the truck in front that has the plow on it to hit the cars out of the way when necessary. Kenneth notices there's a zombie hanging off the back of one of the buses. One of the survivors grabs the chainsaw to get the zombie off the back of the bus, but right when he starts up the chainsaw, they have to make a very violent sharp turn, which causes the man to lose his balance and shove the chainsaw right into a woman's chest. Kenneth gets splashed with blood, then hits something on the road, causing the bus to flip. Now the other bus has to stop and go back for them to check if they're okay. Kenneth is laying down and looks like he's hurt, but Steve seems to be fine, and he gets up and gets out of the bus and leaves everyone else behind. Once he gets out of the bus, he checks his magazine and then loads and cocks his pistol. Then he sees some blood dripping on his hand, but he's not sure where it's from. Then he looks up and realizes there's a zombie right above him, and it jumps down and kills him. Out of the 5 people that were in the one bus, only 2 survive. Kenneth and Terry. The girl got murdered by a chainsaw, the guy I'm assuming he died in the crash, and Steve gets turned into a zombie. While they're all running back to the other bus, Steve pops out, now fully zombified, and Anna takes this moment to fulfill her promise to him, to blow his brains out if he ever got turned into a zombie. Now, I'm not sure if it was the crash or the gunshots that alerted the zombies, but that's when the horde starts showing up and zombies start pouring out from every direction. All the other survivors are running back to the bus, but Anna, for some reason, is looking through Steve's pockets trying to find something. She barely makes it back to the bus alive, with them having to close the door with zombies all around her. When she gets inside, they ask her what the hell she was doing, and that's when she holds up the keys to Steve's boat. Yeah, I guess they wouldn't have got very far without that. Thank God somebody remembered that he had the keys. Surprisingly, they actually make it all the way to the marina and crash the bus onto the dock. Not exactly sure why they did that. Everyone jumps out of the bus and starts running for the boat, except one person, CJ. He stays behind and tells Kenneth to get to the end of the dock. He'll be there soon. CJ's plan was to hold them off and then open the side door on the bus to escape. But when he goes back in the bus, the side door is jammed. He's now stuck in the bus. He pulls out his pistol and takes out as many zombies as he can. Then, when he's overrun, he pulls out a flare, shoots the propane tank, and lets it explode. CJ stayed behind to try to help the group and then ended up sacrificing himself. Throughout the movie, he had one of the best character developments. At the beginning of the movie, he was annoying and a character that almost everyone hated. But as the movie goes on, he starts to slowly become one of the best characters. It's like that thing they say about a lot of villains. If someone can make you hate them, then they're playing that role really well, and CJ definitely did that at the beginning of the movie. After the truck blows up, the rest of them have plenty of time to get on the boat and get away. However, Michael isn't going with them. Right before they set sail on the boat, he shows them that he got bit. It was during the scuffle when Anna was trying to grab Steve's keys to the boat. Michael's of course sad, but he's very stoic and knows what needs to be done. He says they have to go and he has to stay here. Michael pushes the boat off, nods to Kenneth, and says he's just going to stay here a while and enjoy the sunrise. As Michael watches the boat drive away into the lake, he pulls out his pistol and rests it under his chin. Now, this is kind of where the movie ends, but there's actually a little bit of an after-credits scene if you didn't know. I'm guessing there must have been some kind of camcorder on Steve's boat, because the remainder of this after-credits scene is filmed like a found footage movie. We see the survivors come across another empty boat in the water, so they go over to it and see what's inside. They go on the boat and open up the cooler to find a zombie inside the cooler that's been cut up or something and is still alive. We see a quick shot of an empty jug of water, probably trying to show us that they're running low on drink and food. We see another little shot of the boat running out of fuel, then the boat catching on fire and them having to put it out with a fire extinguisher. We don't know how long they've been on the boat, but seemingly after a while they come across an island, like the ones they talked about earlier. They slowly approach the island and it looks like no one's there, so they dock the boat. Before any of them can even really get off the boat, for some reason the dog takes off and sprints onto the island where they can't see it. They all stand there with their guns raised and check inside the boathouse to make sure there's no one around. That's when they hear something coming from the woods. Then they see zombies running toward the boat. The last thing we see is a horde of zombies charging at the boat and the camera's dropped. So we have no idea if they survived or not. So in the end, we never really get a solid answer to what this virus is or where it came from. Society broke down too fast to get answers. Some evidence that lends to it being a biological virus is the fact that it's spread through a bite or scratch like rabies or other similar afflictions. We also see a couple quick clips of what looks like something biological under a microscope in the beginning montage, but there's no concrete facts. Personally, I really like the idea of it being a biblical judgment, but I also like that the idea is just left there for you to think about, never definitive. That's my video on Dawn of the Dead. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one because this is one of my all-time favorite movies, and my favorite zombie movie hands down. The way the movie looks, the action, the comedy, the practical effects, the slight mystery of whether it's judgment or a virus, all create the perfect zombie film in my opinion. It's got just the right amount of comedic relief with it still being a horror film. Every character is given just enough time so you get to know them and they fill a particular role. There's also tons of great scenes that give that type of anxiety that only a good zombie movie can give you. So, when it comes to this virus or whatever it is, what do all of you think? Is it a biological virus or judgment? If there's anything I missed, please let me know in the comments. Also, you can leave any suggestions you have for movies, TV shows, or video games you want me to cover. If you enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe for new videos every week. I apologize, my upload schedule has been all over the place lately. I've been having some really bad migraines on a regular basis, but they seem to have cleared up now, so that will make working on videos a lot easier. I'm also trying out a new way to record videos, so hopefully I'll be able to get even more videos out now. As always, an extra big thanks to all my members for supporting the channel. I'm going to try to add some more members only videos soon, so hopefully you enjoy those. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.